Okay, guys, and welcome to episode 17 of Ferg's Footy Fanfare. I am Ned, and joining me as per usual, I've got Jay. Jay, how you going, mate?
Oh, piss off, Ned. No time for the friendlies, mate. This is bloody family warfare. You're gone, mate. I've had enough of you already. If it's going to be like this the rest of the episode.
Mate, this is an enthralling weekend of football for us. Look at us.
Who would have thought? Not me.
Not me. Crazy
Mate.
that our two teams are playing off in a final. We've I'd say over the journey, you went through your younger years through St Kilda, having I'll say a lot of amount of success, to make two grand final, well, technically to play three grand finals, and be right up there in the competition, in the later 2000 decade. And then now for me to see Richmond going through quite a dominant period over the last 3 years. And now, they come combined. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be a cracker. And I know that if I asked myself and you included at the start, episode number 1, if we thought that St Kilda and Richmond would be playing off in a semi-final, I would definitely take that, but I wouldn't believe you. I think you said in one of your nuggets of knowledge last week, perhaps it's first final since 1973 that St Kilda and Richmond have played off against each other.
That was actually the last time they played in a final series together.
Yeah,
but that year happened to also be when Richmond and St Kilda also played against each other in a final, and that had been only one of 3, I think, from memory, or this might be the third. So there's not much finals history between our two respective clubs.
No, that's right. It's interesting. The Channel 7 crew last week in the Saints Dogs game, they made reference a couple of times of like the inexperience of St Kilda and the Western Bulldogs in their history of making finals. I think it was something like St Kilda's 26th final win throughout, since their establishment in 1897. So,
and that's pretty crazy because you guys had, a really good period where you made your three grand finals, and you're in that dominant period where you guys won a minor premiership that in one of those years. And Bulldogs have been up thereabouts, throughout the late 90s. Obviously they faced off in a prelim against Adelaide, and obviously went on to win the premiership in 2016.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they've been through periods of successfulness, in the last couple of decades. So I think that's more so the model that you're going to see these days from AFL teams is more of a continued success as opposed to, hitting the top and then going down to the draft and trying to rebuild. But regardless of which way you look at it, we're here now, big final tomorrow. And the reason that we've done this episode on a Thursday night is mainly we've got the teams in, Ned, so may as well get stuck straight into it. And it's going to be better if we keep you on the Richmond camp tonight. So can you tell us what the teams are looking like for the Tigers?
So I'm sort of shaking my head at one of the selections. Nathan Broad coming in for Jake Arts. And then obviously Tom Lynch coming in for Mabior Chol, which was obviously going to be thereabouts. I think Broad definitely is in our best 22. At the sacrifice of Arts, I think not. I think Arts has probably been our most promising small forward this year. He seems to be able to kick his goal a game, provides a lot of good forward half tackling pressure. My only problem with him, and I've seen it, especially in the later weeks, is that he tends to get caught up holding the ball, like dragging it in or not really making a genuine attempt. But I still don't think that's really justifiable for omitting him, in my opinion. But to be fair, he's probably not as quick as Castagna or Rioli. And also Broad is probably a bit more agile than Caddy, who I still think is carrying a bit of an injury. So I'll expect Broad to play that Josh Caddy role where he plays high half forward onto a wing. He's been doing a lot of time in the scratch matches, playing on a wing, high half forward, high half back. He's been sort of utilised wherever he's needed. So I think he's probably been put in that spot where they just sort of chuck him where they need him. If they need him down back, he'll be able to go down back. We know he's a proven defender. And, going forward, he can take a mark. So, and on the wing, he's, he is quite a good runner. Like, he has good aerobic capacity. But yeah, Lynch for Chol is pretty logical after Chol's performance. And obviously, Lynch being one of the more marquee key forwards in the comp. It's a bit of a no-brainer, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I guess that's something that I wanted to ask you, but you've gone into depth pretty well about it then. Coming from a position, I'm not overly knowledgeable in the way that Richmond play and their style. So are you saying that the main reason they've brought Broad in is just for that versatility that he offers compared to Art? So, he can be used as a potential swingman regarding and given how the play of the game is going out?
I believe so, yes. If we need someone to flood back and be able to, play a third man up at half back or something, I believe, he's proven to be able to take a mark. He's, he's, won 2 premierships as a defender. So he's got defense down packed. He is, like what I said, he's quite a good aerobic. He's got quite a good aerobics. So there's no reason why he might not jump up onto a wing. But I think he might be as a high half forward. Obviously, Richmond last week against Brisbane were quite woeful. And I think this has been our problem throughout most of the year, is that going forward and just being able to find marks. So whether Richmond are going to start looking at lowering their eyes and just being able to hit, good marking targets. Obviously, Carlisle missing for St Kilda is a massive out. So having really three tools down there, depending on where Martin starts. You probably assume Martin start in the middle, I'd say, just from an assumption. But so you got 3, you got 2 tools and 1 real medium-sized forward. That provides marking opportunities aplenty, especially if Richmond are going to go through the lines of lowering their eyes.
Yeah, and it was mentioned throughout the week, and I know that Dimmer kind of kept his options open in terms of perhaps keeping Chol in. And I think that was made reference to considering that St Kilda had Carlisle and Ryder out, and we'll get to the St Kilda list in a second.
Also, sorry to butt in, but Broad has also in times when Nankervis was out with his syndesmosis, that Broad will actually find himself in the ruck every now and then.
Right.
Unless they're going to put Lynch into the ruck. If Lynch is fit enough, they might do Lynch as a second ruck and Broad comes back as a bit of a more bigger size forward, or they're using Broad as a second ruckman, sort of like a Sean Griggs sort of role back in 2017.
Yeah, well, I think, and that's what I was getting on then, is that it kind of got thrown into Hardwick's face, given the outs that St Kilda have. He had an opportunity to stack his team full of tools and really dominate in the air. He's chosen not to, and I think that's the preferable option, and I think that's probably the smarter option out of the two. More so considering, if St Kilda manages to play well, they're going to be real damaging with their pace. And not only that, it's a long way for how St Kilda won in round 4 against the Tigers. So I think that, a bit of caution needs to be thrown into the wind and make sure that they don't make it their squad too tall and hope to dominate in the air.
Yeah, so there's also one player that I tend to forget about. And he actually started off when he made his debut for Richmond playing as a second ruck, and that's Noah Bolter.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, like what I said, Broad's a very proven defender. The fact that they might actually start utilising Bolter, in a half forward or as a second ruckman, it's just, a slight altercation. I don't think Bolter was that fantastic on the weekend. But yeah, that could be another possibility. Look, I've got no idea what the plan is, but just trying to, it's like, doing a 50 options of dot to dot.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's a good time to get into the St Kilda team. So St Kilda have had to make 3 forced changes. They've Paddy Ryder obviously injured his hamstring last week. Jay Carlisle has gone back down to Victoria for the birth of his child. And Ben Long was suspended, and he had his suspension upheld by the tribunal, which I will get to a little bit later on, because that will be part of the segment. You can't be doing that. But we'll get.
I thought he was very stiff, in my opinion.
Yeah. You know what? We'll do it now. So this isn't a you can't be doing that right now. I'm reserving this one, Ned, until next season, because I guarantee it's going to come up next season. The main reason that Ben Long got suspended was the medium impact and, quote unquote, the potential to cause injury. So I think that draws a very dangerous line in the way that injuries are looked at in terms of people going to the tribunal. And I think that means that any conduct that can potentially result in an injury, then that's going to be under the microscope and potentially valid for a week. And you can't be doing that. Honestly, when I first saw the bump by Ben Long, I thought that it was a week. It looked as if it could have been a week, but I thought that fair enough arguments were made in the fact that McRae was not injured from it. And I don't even think he had a concussion test. I don't even think he went off the field. So I think you need to be very careful basing your assessment on the injury of a player, because, at the end of the day, it's AFL. There's always a potential for someone to get injured. You could say the same thing about half a dozen cases that have been gotten away with fines. There's always a potential to get injured. So I'm waiting for, someone to get suspended next year. They'll go through the next week. They'll go through the tribunal process, and they'll get given the green light to play that week and drop their suspension based on a successful challenge. So it will be interesting to see, but we'll reserve that to this time next year, and I'll go a bit harder.
Yeah, look, in my opinion, I thought in my watching it live and watching the replays, it looked like he tried to slow down and not execute full force. Obviously, it didn't look good in full, in full motion. But at the end of the day, it's only split-second decision. I have him off in my book. Obviously, like what we discussed throughout the week, that the appeals board does not take prior convictions into account. Obviously, and he's one on Sean Darcy. That was definitely not intentional as well either. So that's what I think. I think it's not really, it wasn't intentional. And I think that's what they have to get right, is that there's potential to cause injury. But you don't play AFL not to think that, okay, there could be a chance I get injured. I mean, you go for a marking contest and, you land awkwardly on your knee, you do your ACL.
And that's exactly right.
And there's some bloke, niggling you in the back, and that could have caused the injury, but that's not going to get you anywhere, because if their knee's just in the back and they're flying for the mark, realistically it's play on, and there's no potential to cause harm in that instance, isn't there?
No, that's exactly right. And it's something else that I just want to quickly touch over before I start going into the team list and the preview of the game, is that it kind of feels wrong in the whole system where you've got someone getting suspended for going for the ball, albeit, he has, engaged in misconduct by giving off a high bump. But it kind of seems a bit harsh that he gets a week and then there's off the ball incidents that don't get a week. So I think that there needs to be quite a significant overhaul, in my opinion. And, you kind of want to see people go 100% at the ball. You don't want to see people get hit high. So I'm okay if that's going to constitute a week. But I think that if that's the case, then you need to crack down on this off the ball stuff, because, the prime example is the Tom Lynch one earlier on against Brisbane. I think like the little jabs, that I guess there's arguments to say that they're okay, but for the more serious ones, I think that they should almost constitute a mandatory week.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and that's the thing. And when you, when you go through the ranks of playing Auskick and, junior football, your obvious entitlement is always to go for the ball. But if you're restricted to that, and look, maybe at initial thought there's a week in it and there is maybe a free kick in it. Well, there is a free kick in it, definitely, because it was high contact. But when you're looking at potentials, it's my opinion, it's quite shit.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous line to tread.
It is dangerous
Yeah.
because you look at any incident and there's always potential to cause injury. Two players, they hip and shoulder each other. What means a player can't, slip over and, do a syndesmosis or, roll their ankle. So I think the potential thing is not bad. Is quite bad. I think you gotta take each case as it is by its value.
Yeah. Well, for example, let's just say it's the exact same incident, a high bump, but then for whatever reason, you're right. McRae rolls his ankle, and if he was to play next week, he'd have to miss because of an injury. Does that injury that's sustained from a high bump, even though it's occurred on his ankle, does that go towards suspending someone? So I think it makes the line too dangerous and too ambiguous.
And what happens if a bump that maybe goes high? Say, for example, Mason Cox bumps Caleb Daniel. Obviously, there's not much that Mason Cox could do to get down to the level to bump Caleb Daniel in a legal way. Yeah, it might be a free kick, but you've got to realise that.
Yeah, I think it'll just be very interesting because it'll surely become up to interpretation again next year. You'd think, bumps are a part of the, part of everyday football. So, but anyway, so Ben Long misses out this week and he's replaced by Shane Savage. Now, this is essentially a straight swap. Shane Savage has only played one game this year, but in that game, he had the most meters gained. And to be completely honest, I'm more than happy with that, that swap. It would be better to have Ben Long in, I suppose. But Shane Savage, provides a bit of pace off halfback, and he's got a pretty powerful boot on him as well. So he's probably a bit of an equivalent of a Jaden Short, but maybe not as good as accurate a kick. But he doesn't have to do too much defending, Shane Savage. So I think that'll be his job. I reckon his job will be get the pill, run, kick long.
I don't know, man. Ben Long's a genuine superstar. I don't know. Recover.
Right, you've been listening to too much of Coops, I reckon, in AFL trade rumours.
Yeah.
And in the other two changes, so Carlisle's out and he's made way for Josh Battle and Ryder out for Jonathan Marsh. Now, at the moment, if you look at the list, you've got Jonathan Marsh in the back line and Josh Battle in the forward line. Now, I reckon throughout the entire game, they're going to be very versatile. It's going to be a real malleable formation. So I wouldn't be surprised if they spend a lot of time switching depending on how the game's playing out. And it'll be interesting because Jonathan Marsh has quite a lot of zip as well. He's got a fair bit of pace on him. So I think that's going to be, and I'll get to that in a second, but I think that's going to be the main way to beat Richmond. So they've had to go slightly smaller, not by choice, more by what's been given to them. But I think that it has the potential to work in their favour.
That's right. I think like we discussed for the Eagles St Kilda game about how we questioned St Kilda's selection, and I think in a way you can't be reactive. You've got to be proactive.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to utilize your assets to the best. You can't be thinking about, in St Kilda's case, you can't be thinking about what Richmond's doing. And that's the thing with Richmond as well. You can't be thinking about what St Kilda's doing because you're going to try and make sure that your game style is better than theirs.
You need to back yourself in, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You got to, and you don't make a semi-final by fluke.
Yeah, spot on.
You finished 7th. You guys finished 7th?
We finished 6th, but yeah.
6th, yeah. So you finish 6th and you get through the first week of finals. You don't do that by fluke.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be a decent team to do that. And you know what, you're 6th, there's 12 teams below you. So you got to know that you're right up there in that top 6 group, that that your game will keep you in games and if not win you games.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with that. Both teams, really need to own up to it. They need to understand. I think that, that's just a given with Richmond. That's academic because they've been there long enough. They know what they're doing, which leads me to my next question for you. We did this last week when we were previewing the first week of finals. I need you to give me 1 or 2 words on what Richmond need to focus on to win.
discipline and forward 50 efficiency.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's fair. See, look, I've gone controlled aggression. I think it wouldn't hurt Richmond if they went going into tomorrow knowing that, they've been the team that no one's been able to knock off the last couple of years. They need to really stamp their authority down. So whether that's before the first bounce, getting stuck into the Saints, I think they need to show that they're dominant. Even if it's by a quick start, they need to make sure that they're ready to go, because I think if they manage to kind of put St Kilda in a bit of a corner, I reckon that, there's a fair chance they could kick away with it early.
Well, I think if you're a good football team, which this Richmond side is, just let your football do the talking. You're a good team. Just walk, walk the walk and talk the talk with your football. Don't get sucked into, that's what Brisbane did. They tried to suck Richmond into crap and, it led to 4 50-metre penalties. Richmond just need to do the talking with their football.
Yeah.
I think realistically, they just need to be disciplined. Obviously have that sort of on-edge aggression that we know they have, with that ferocious tackling and all that. But, you don't need to be, slamming blokes off the ball or, yeah.
Yeah, so you're suggesting that, Richmond come out, they just don't even focus on trying to, intimidate St Kilda, around the ball in terms of off the footy, but more just let their footy do the talking. Just
do the talking with your football. If you're a good football side, you just do it, just playing pure football. And, if things pan out, which I think, in no disrespect, I think Richmond's a better football side. If Richmond come in, play a good, hard, disciplined brand of football, they'll beat St Kilda and they'll walk away with the chocolates. And, that's all you can want. Who cares if you slam someone onto the ground and, they, and they're hurt afterwards, you just want to win the game.
Yeah. Now, spot on. Do you have one or two words that St Kilda could potentially focus on for them to win?
I think pace and overlap for mine. St Kilda throughout the early stage of the year had that really good fast movement and being able to get that good overlap. And, obviously Richmond pride their defense on being so system-based, but if you get that overlap and you have to make them change their system, that's going to create the system to break down. And I think the only way to do it is overlap. I mean, we saw earlier on in the year, Bradley Hill ran from half back, streamed through, and somehow got the ball and ran into an open goal.
Well, I'd just like to inform the audience, I'm glad that I'm not sitting in person with Ned, because I would have just about knocked his block off then. You've stolen my thunder. You've stolen my thunder. That's the exact same. The one word I had was pace. As you just spoke about, it's what got the better of Richmond in round 4, which was a really good game. Both teams played played well. I think St Kilda just had a tad more polish, or whether that was them playing better or Richmond just not up to their regular standard. That was the only difference, just that little bit of polish. But see, I think St Kilda made a really concerted effort last week against the Doggies to quick through the corridor, get it into a one-on-one in the forward 50 and then just get everyone in there. So I think that the Gabba offers that as a positive and, it really gives you a chance to just bang it down the middle. I think that Richmond have the key at Metricon. You want to say something?
Yeah, I was about to say it's played at Metricon.
Yeah. So, look, I really think that goes into Richmond's advantage, to be honest. I think St Kilda's perhaps they've played 3 games this year and they've won one of them, and that was against Gold Coast, and they only won by about 2 points. So, and I know that Richmond's played pretty well throughout the year there, haven't they?
Yeah, I don't think Richmond have lost a game at Metricon from memory.
I know they had that good win against West Coast when West Coast were playing their best footy.
And the Geelong game was at Metricon as well. But also another thing I think is a real key for St Kilda is they need to be in this game. And this is the thing about Richmond, is Richmond will grind you down for 4 quarters. St Kilda have to be in this game for at least 3 quarters. If St Kilda can get a jump and get, a few goal lead at quarter time, maybe be able to maintain it, have little lapses. But realistically, I think if St Kilda are going to win the game, they're going to have to be in this game for 3.5 quarters.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, Ned. And I think that, the Tigers, that they'll know that, because St Kilda, if they're susceptible to anything, they're susceptible to falling asleep in the last quarter. I think they've done it about 3 times this year. They've given up substantial leads. They almost did it last week.
Yeah.
I reckon that would have almost been one of the first messages given to the boys, would have been something along the lines of, let's make sure we play 4 quarters of footy. We don't stop. We keep playing our brand.
And Richmond are generally a good fourth quarter side as well.
Yeah. So they'll have to make sure, you're exactly right. They have to make sure they turn up for 4 quarters and bring the heat. Even, they somehow manage to be a couple goals up at 3-quarter time. They can't stop, because a team of Richmond's caliber will eat them up. It'll be that simple for them. Now, us, the non-condoners of betting, have decided once again to do a little finals footy multi. Given the importance of this week for both of our teams respectively, we've decided to both do a multi on our own teams. But Ned, I'm getting a little whisper that you've actually integrated a few Saints legs in there. Is that correct?
One Saints leg, yeah. So our cousin Mark Costa has been quite slack on his betting. Obviously, his bets aren't coming through, and he just doesn't have the funds to be able to refund new multis. So I'll start off with my multi. So this is a 5-leg multi, 41-1. So it's Richmond to win 1-39 points. Tom Lynch to kick 2+ goals. St Kilda's Tim Membry to kick 2+ goals. Richmond to win the final quarter by 13+ points. And then Dustin Martin have 20+ touches.
Yeah, I mean, you're good at picking a multi where it's all relatively possible, So
how about a few of mine last week?
Yeah,
we did
how
discuss
close were
this.
you, or were you close enough?
So in the NRL, I had Jack Whiten to score a double, pulls through the double. His team couldn't get over the line by 19 points. They get over the line by 12 points. My Collingwood West Coast one came quite close. I think Taylor Adams may have been a couple of disposals off, but Adam Simpson was out to get me and said, you know what, stuff you, Ned. I'm going to chuck Jack Boardman in defense.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I got no love from Simo there. And, I think I was paying pretty good multi. I think it was about 61-1 as well. And I had a couple of bucks on it. So, Adam Simpson, get your game together, mate. That's pretty piss poor for mine.
Well, he's got a long preseason to think about it. In terms of, I think I had a 3-legger last week. It was very close. I got the over on the points, and I got the St Kilda win. I needed Jack Billings' goal, and I think there was one stage in the last quarter where he's tiptoeing along the point line, and I think he tripped over his own feet and coughed the ball up, and I was getting pretty excited for what looked to be a certain goal. But for this week, I've gone a bit more extravagant, conceding that St Kilda are the underdogs. I've gone a 5-legger as well. This one's paying at $69.50. So yeah, I've got St Kilda for the win. I've got Jack Billings in there again for 20 or more disposals. I think he's going to get a bit more game time, a bit more time up in the midfield. I've got Jack Steele for anytime goal scorer.
Ooh.
Total points, I reckon, is going to be a high-scoring game. I've got it over the 121.5. And I've chucked a little sneaky one for a fan favourite of ours, Jack Sinclair, to have 15+ disposals. It's just not fair.
Look, I'm not sure how our regular listener, Jack Stephen, will feel about that. But yeah, sure, why not?
Hold him accountable on a quick tag-in roll. Keep him busy. So that's it. Hopefully we get a bit of love on that one. But and now it's come down to our tips. So who are you tipping by how much, Ned?
I'm tipping Richmond by 18 points.
Yeah. Look, I think from a realistic point of view, I think that's probably around the ballpark. I'd probably like it to be a little bit closer, but you can definitely see it being around that 3 goal mark. I've gone a bit more optimistic rather than realistic, clouded by bias. I've gone St Kilda by 4 points. Expected another heart and mouth kind of finish, and maybe us not talking to each other for a couple of days. You never know.
Not talking to each other, mate.
Either that, or I'm going to have to do a
doing a
quick trip
drive-by.
down to a quick trip down to BIAC with a baseball bat.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the more less important game from a Fergs footy fanfare perspective. Geelong and Collingwood, to be honest, this is probably one of the most games I do not give two flying Fs about. Two teams that are right on the bottom of my favoritism spectrum.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. No, I can imagine you watching this and just being like, oh, bloody Cox, bloody danger, not having a good time watching it, seeing all the players that you dislike immensely.
I might be out in the shed, actually. I might, I might call in and check in and be like, oh, wow, that's the score. Yeah, look, I'm going to be blatantly honest. I don't really care much about this game because I think the way that Brisbane played, I can't see either of these sides getting the chocolates over Brisbane in the preliminary final anyway. So, they're sort of, playing for second place. Or playing for
look, it's
realistically.
It's a fair enough bump. I think this game has the potential to be closer than the Richmond and St Kilda game. If I was Geelong, I'd be pretty scared, to be completely honest. I think there's a real possibility they could go out in straight sets here. Just based on, I think that Collingwood win last week will do so much for their confidence. It'll do so much for how they play regularly. They'll know that that's the benchmark now, and they'll try and hit that every week. And we know that when Collingwood's playing their best football, it's difficult for any team to beat them. So I think it's got a real good potential. It sounds like Selwood will play. It sounds like, any changes that are made are not forced through injury. I'm not sure if you've written down keys for each team winning, but I have. So,
I can think of keys right now. I haven't written any down, but I can think.
All right, what have you got for Collingwood then?
So for Collingwood, I think just keep on keeping on. They played a really good game against West Coast. They're able to hold out a very dominant marking side and very controlling side that West Coast are. Obviously, that's what saw them win the premiership a couple of years ago. And we see Geelong are trying to sort of go down that sort of same method that they like to have as much control of the ball as possible. And I think for Collingwood, they've just got to play, good, fast football. You got some really fast players, Treloar. Treloar. And you got Pendlebury, you can find times and space anywhere. You got DeGoey up forward, who I suspect will be playing. I don't think he'll get dropped. But I think Collingwood they've just got to get back and playing high pressure football. They can play really good high pressure football.
Yeah, well, mine is, you're stealing my thunder again. I'm going to have to go first next time. I've gone with unrelenting pressure. Their engine room in the midfield is pretty, is just as good as any's getting around, especially with Taylor Adams in the form that he's in at the moment. And I think that is probably the biggest step to stopping the clean and slow football movement that Geelong likes. So I think that, they want to make it real finals footy, really hotly contested, lots of tackling, lots of contested possessions. And I think that they'll enjoy that brand of footy more than Geelong will.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. We saw Geelong come unstuck against Richmond against, real high quality pressure. So I think, and Collingwood really have the potential to give high amounts of pressure that they can force in a lot of Geelong mistakes. Just a thing as well, if Geelong do go in straight sets like we're talking about, is there going to be a lot more scrutiny on Chris Scott? Obviously, his finals record, I think from memory, he has coached.
So 4 and 12? 4 and 12?
Maybe? Yeah, 4 and 12. 4 and 12. Yeah, 16 finals, 4 and 12. And then if that makes it 4 and 13, I mean, we're not Geelong fans, but I feel if I was a Geelong fan, that there's been years where there has been potential for him to, playing a grand final or win a premiership, and is the frustration really going to kick in for Geelong that, they've been a really good team for so long, but what has been, so good, really meant when you haven't really got the chocolates.
Yeah, it's something that, it'd be an interesting question to ask a Geelong fan to see whether their patience is wearing thin. I know that we'll get stuck into this more in the off season. We'll start talking about trade whispers and all that, but I have heard that there's a potential for Geelong to go for Jeremy Cameron. Big news if true, but you'd have to wait and see if that develops anymore. But in terms of the coaching role, I don't think they'll get rid of Chris Scott unless there's a substitute that is proven. And at the moment, there's just
Matthew Scarlett.
Yeah, unless you were to go something, I reckon unless you were to try and get Ross the Boss back in, whose game plan is questionable when it comes to those big finals. I think that they just have to go with him, and hope that they, like we were talking about last week, pick up another key forward, and maybe that's their missing puzzle piece. But it is concerning, their finals record. And you're right, if they do go out this week, then questions will be asked by their fans. I'm sure of it.
So for my keys for Geelong,
yep,
they have to play more desperate. They have to be desperate. We look at the way that Richmond have been able to play finals. They play really desperate. They play years ago, they played a qualifying final like it's a knockout final. Mm-hmm. They play like they're playing for their lives every single week. I think that's what Geelong need to develop into their game. They really have to have that sense of urgency and that sense of desperation. Because we know Geelong are a very good side. Finished top of the ladder last year. They finished top 4 again this year. They can do it. Realistically, they can do it. But they've got to be able to provide that desperation that a lot of sides come finals are able to do. Like, for example, a Collingwood or a GWS last year, Bulldogs back in 2016, they're able to play that sort of style. Richmond have been able to do it, through the last few final series. They really need to find that real next gear, and if they want to win a premiership, they're going to have to play, that real on edge sort of style. Yeah,
well, seeming that it's been kind of the talk between us whenever we've referred to Geelong over the past couple of weeks. My tips for them to win is they need their forward line to stand up. So you had the Tomahawk, obviously inaccurate last week. I don't think he needs to be doing anything different. Maybe just having his leading passages maybe slightly more central. But yeah, he's obviously doing the right things to get the ball. But they had a lot of forwards, and I'll name a few. They had Myers, Rowan. They had O'Connor playing forward at times, which I thought was a bit odd considering he's a backman. And Ablett to a certain extent, but they were all they were all quiet throughout the nights. And when you look at their general lineup for their forward line, it's, there's not a lot of goal kickers. Dalhouse is there and he's a pretty nippy around the ball, but he's not someone that you rely on to kick 2 or 3 a game. So they need to, people to stand up and start generating another source of scoring, or else I think they're going to be in real trouble.
Without hinting hints, is it going to be a chemistry issue between Rowan and Hawkins? Without dropping too many hints or gags.
No. Yeah, you'd like to think that in AFL football it's professional enough that once it's on the field, your teammates and all that. But I don't think that there should be an issue. Most of the times it depends whether Rowan rocks up. I reckon he's one of the best inconsistent players. Like when he can shred teams apart, but he's very capable of going missing as well. So if he's
especially in finals, we've seen him a few grand finals when he played for the Swans. That he was going to be the real key for the Swans to win grand finals, and he just
if he rocks up and brings his A game on Saturday evening, I think that goes a long way for them to winning. They're providing another target, and I'm going to assume that they're not going to play Radaglia as well. So, maybe they even think about throwing a bit more of an attacking presence with Jack Steven in, but I can't see that either. I think they'll pretty much.
Did his hamstring.
Oh, there you go.
Did his hamstring from a nice crunching tackle from Jack Graham 2.0, the Fridge 2.0 in Jack Ross.
That's all right. He'll be pretty happy that it wasn't Jack Sinclair.
Oh, it's just not fair.
All right. So, tip, Ned.
Yeah, I'm going Collingwood by 8. I think Collingwood would take enormous confidence out of their win over West Coast. And obviously Geelong's crunch finals record has been has been quite a big topic over the last few years. And I think it might be a continuing issue.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of, tipping against the grain here, considering that Collingwood were 22-point victors against Geelong earlier on in the season. I think that Geelong will be able to get the job done, and they'll do it by 11 points. Yeah, I just feel like you might be able to expect a bit more out of their bigger names. I think if Dangerfield plays well, Hawkins plays similar to where if he just kicks straight, if he ends up kicking 5 goals, I can't see them winning. But in saying that, he's going to be playing on Darcy Moore rather than Trent McKenzie, so he's going to have a much harder task at hand.
Exactly right.
All right, beautiful. Well, hopefully there's 2 of us here next episode. We'll hopefully one of us hasn't killed the other. But no, in all honesty, I really hope that it's a close game tomorrow, and I hope that both teams just play their best. It would be quite disappointing to only see one team rock up. So in saying that, best of luck for tomorrow, Ned. I hope your team plays well, but not too well.
Okay, mate, and I've just got one final thing for you for tomorrow night. Bit of tongue-in-cheek. If you're down, phone 131114.
And that number is?
Lifeline Australia.
Oh. All right. No, you know what? In my mindset that I've got for the game tomorrow, it's really only up. I think and look, you can look at it as a positive if Richmond end up losing tomorrow. There's no doubt that I'll be able to swing up there for grand final weekend. Won't have to worry about going to work. So.
Yeah, that's all right. But also a bit of Ned's nuggets of knowledge, and I did take a screenshot of this.
Jeez.
Yeah. Look, I'm right over all this stuff. So I did see a screenshot. Port Adelaide.
Oh, I reckon I know where you're going with this.
So Port Adelaide in 2004 beat Geelong in a qualifying final. And if St Kilda are to win against Richmond, they will be playing St Kilda in a preliminary final.
In Adelaide?
Now, if Collingwood, if Geelong beat Collingwood, Geelong will be playing Brisbane. And then if Brisbane and Port Adelaide win, they'll be playing the same grand final as 2004.
Yeah.
And if Port Adelaide win that grand final, well, they would have gone through the same trio as they would have when they won in 2004, as well as the 2 preliminary finals being the same 2 teams with the same final outcome.
Jeez. Pretty crazy. Hey, you get 8, or even these days, you've got 2 extra teams in 2004, and you can still kind of come to that similar conclusion where you've got the potential for 4 of the same teams to be at the same position, same state that it's played in. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and also this lifeline thing that I said to you could really come to bite me in the ass. So
yeah,
I'm expecting criticism if it comes to bite me back in the ass.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Best of luck tomorrow and best of luck throughout the week. We'll have our next episode up early next week to review week 2 of the finals. Thanks, everyone. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Jay.